and welcome to lesson number 6. Don't get over leveraged. How many of you have ever heard horror stories about people losing their investment properties? Or have you ever wondered in the last crash how so many people lost their homes and their investment properties? Well, the reason that happened is because people were over leveraged. If you think about it, I'll tell you a story from the 80s that'll kind of help this come together. Late 1980s in Texas, Oklahoma, and I think maybe Arkansas, the economy was built on real estate, savings and loan, and the oil industry, and it all crashed basically in one day. Now, Jim and I didn't really own investment properties back then, but what we did notice is people that owned a lot of investment properties, they lost them all. And so we began to wonder and question, why did they lose all their investment properties? And what we would begin to find out is they were over leveraged in the properties, which means they had way too much of the property financed. So when the market hit a bubble or crashed, there was no room for them to recover. And so that's kind of what we've now kind of tagged as they were speculators, not investors. And so let's look at the difference between investor and speculator, because we want you to be an investor, not a speculator. So if you look in the dictionary, speculator even says to estimate or assume without enough knowledge of something. So that's what we don't want to do in real estate investing. What we want to do is we want to know the numbers, and then the numbers tells us whether we should invest or not. So a speculator is going to base their information on something that they're not even sure if it's going to happen yet. And so that would be something like appreciation, or the market's going to keep going the way it's going. And so what we want to teach you to do is be a good investor, and that way you're insulated from the bubbles and the downturns and the things that happen. Jim and I have not ever lost a property in any downturn once we got this concept of never being over leveraged. And so let's talk about some of the key things on being an investor versus a speculator. One of the things that happened in '08, before that crash, is a lot of investors, or speculators if you will, came from California, and because they have such large appreciation in California, they bought in Texas, and they bought properties based on the fact that they thought they were going to appreciate. And so that is the houses that we would then buy in '08, '09, and 10 on the foreclosure steps. And so those people were being speculators. So let's figure out, how do you be an investor and not be a speculator? So number one, there's a few key rules that if you just always make sure that you adhere to these rules, then you're being more of an investor than a speculator. So here's number one. The property must cash flow from day one. So the day you buy it, it has to cash flow, and even if it's $1. Now we kind of suggest in our program a little bit more than $1, but even if it's $1, that's considered cash flow. You never want to buy one that has a negative cash flow. All the investors in California were used to having a negative cash flow, or speculators when they came to Texas, so they were okay with a negative cash flow, but the problem is the market crashed, and then all of a sudden they didn't have enough money to make up the difference. And so you want to make sure your property cash flows from day one, even $1. Number two, the property must be a good deal the day you buy it. Have you ever heard the statement, you make your money on the buy? Well, that's exactly what we're talking about here. It's a good deal the day you buy it. Not it's going to be a good deal after it appreciates a certain amount, or if this happens or if that happens. Again, that's getting into speculation. Number three, you want to be at least a 70 to 30% loan-to-value ratio the day you take ownership. So what does that mean? So in different markets, you're either going to have to put more money down or less money down. I'll give you an example again. Back in the last crash in '08 and '09 and in that area, we could actually go to the foreclosure steps and buy a property, and we could have financed 100% of that property because they were loaning 80% of the appraised value after it was fixed up. So that means we really could have gotten into some properties for 100%. But our rule is to always be at a 70 to 30 loan to value ratio. So that means we always want to have 30% equity in no matter what. So that means we put some markets we're going to have to put more money down to do that. Some markets we're going to have to put less money down. Now again, we want to build a long-term, good, solid investment strategy, and so that's why we're doing that, because we don't want to fall victim to the ups and downs of the marketplace. So always be at least a 70 to 30 loan to value ratio the day you get the property. So you're going to have to maneuver your financing a little bit to make that happen, depending on your market and your state. But that's a rule that we don't violate. And D is, don't buy a property based only on appreciation. Again, this is what makes someone a speculator. If they start buying based on high appreciation, then they become a speculator more than an investor. And there's lots of states where they're going to have a higher appreciation. Arizona, the East Coast, West Coast, Florida, those are all states that tend to have, when appreciation happens, they have bigger swings in appreciation. So, a couple examples of this to help you understand it is, some of my agents from Indianapolis ran to Florida when Florida's market was so hot, and they bought properties. Well, guess what? They were buying based on appreciation, so when the market crashed, because they got in on the tail end of it, they actually lost money. And again, that was them being a speculator. Another story along this line is a lady we were coaching in Kentucky. By the time we met her, she was in tears because even though she had been a good investor in her local area, she took some of her money, went to Florida, bought some properties in new neighborhoods, all based on appreciation. And so when the market crashed, those properties in Florida really, really drained the rest of her portfolio. And so by the time, she was pretty much sick of investing and ready to throw in the towel. But when we kind of pointed out to her and made her understand, it was really the speculation of appreciation that got her in the mess. It wasn't the good investments that she made locally in Kentucky. Those are all still great properties. And so don't buy a property based on appreciation. That's just icing on the cake or a bonus that you're going to get. You don't buy based on you think there's going to be appreciation, or even if you're in the middle of appreciation, you don't buy based on that. And so this strategy of never being over leveraged has worked for us all throughout several downturns of the market, upticks in the market, all markets since 1992. Most real estate investors lose real estate because they're being over leveraged. That's what causes them to lose money. And so you don't ever want to be over leveraged. You want to follow these, kind of conservative guidelines. Yes, I know it's a slower approach to get there, but it's a safer approach to get there. And so we've used this strategy since 1992. Again, we've had several crashes since then, so it's time tested and time proven. So love to hear your ideas on this principle and this lesson. So if you would, look down below and make comments. We'd love to have your comments or your feedback or your questions. Thank you.